The opinions expressed on this program represent the viewpoints of individual authors or contributors and do not necessarily reflect those of Troy University. This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we got a real treat tonight. One of the legendary figures in Alabama political history and legal history primarily, Jere Beasley. The famous Jere Beasley is our guest tonight, and I'm old enough to remember when Jere was lieutenant governor, and we've been friends a long time. Not as long as he and Senator Shelby and some of the other ones have been, but we've been friends a long time. He's a great Alabamian, a great Alabama legend. Jere, thanks for taking time to do this.
Well, thank you, Steve. I look forward to it. In fact, you're sort of a legend in your own time.
I don't know about that. But I tell you one thing, I do want to get to early years, though, Jere, and maybe we have time getting to your famous legal career. But you and I come from the same neck of the woods. You from Barber, me from Pike. And, you know, your family probably had the same heritage as mine. Your family, Beasley, mostly Scotch-Irish, weren't they?
Yeah, and my mother also.
My daddy and mama were too.
Yeah.
I didn't know that exactly until my younger daughter and I did that test one time. But they settled in Barber County. Did your ancestors say they came from the Carolinas? Mine did.
They came from the Carolinas in 1819.
That's about when mine did.
Yeah.
I had a guy named Wilson Grant that came to Bullock and Pike. My mama's people from China Grove. And they did the same thing. So your people settled. That was exactly when Wilson Grant came down here.
And they settled at a place called Pratt Station, halfway between Clayton and Louisville, and farmed. My daddy and my granddaddy, great-granddaddy, granddaddy, and daddy all farmed there. And I actually farmed there with them when I dropped out of college after the first year.
You went to Georgia first,
Went
didn't
to
you?
Georgia on a football scholarship. Wound up at a junior college in Mississippi. Had a bad knee, and he used that as an excuse to drop out of school.
So, Jere, people don't realize this. He was a really star quarterback at Clayton High School. Now, how did Georgia get over here and recruit you out of Clayton?
My high school coach had played at Ole Miss under a coach named Jim Watley, who had been at Ole Miss and was coaching at Georgia. And I actually was a package deal. My high school coach made a deal with Coach Watley that if I would go to Georgia, they would take my coach's brother, who was a junior in high school. I didn't know that. So I go to Georgia, and Georgia was not very good at the time. Wally Butts was the coach, and they had a losing team. And I was a quarterback, and ended up at the junior college and played at Perkinston State Junior College, and was hurt again. They took me down to Oshner Clinic, and the doctor told the coach to get that kid off the field, because then they didn't do surgery much at that time. So I wound up with a bad knee, and so I just dropped out.
Now, your people came from the Carolinas, settled in Pratt. Was it called Pratt
Station?
Pratt Station. Is that where current-day Louisville is, or
It's about 5 miles from Louisville.
Now, your family farmed, but they also had a nice country store there, didn't they?
My mother ran a little store. She died when I was 15, but she had that little store in Clayton. And sold, it was just a typical, very small country store. And you wouldn't know what Fatback and Strychnine is, but had a meat box back there.
I remember that, yeah.
My job was cutting the meat for her.
You know, if I change the subject a little bit, folks, some of y'all know his brother, Billy, who's in the state senate over there, covers that whole area of the state. I never saw two brothers look just like they.
Yeah.
Well, I bet people confuse y'all all the time, don't they?
I get called Billy all the time, and Billy's doing a good job in the Senate. He's really been extremely effective, and has done some really good things. And he really is a better politician than I ever was. In fact, had he had the same opportunities, he'd have been governor.
He stayed in that farm that he made a lot of friends doing that local drugstore too.
Yeah,
In Clayton, you know, and Rebecca's family had that paper, you know.
Miss Rebecca Parrish. And
so I had that part of Barber County when I first ran.
Yeah.
And so I got to know all those people. We had the same old Marshall Williams. He was a good friend of yours.
He was the best politician, including you, that I've ever known.
Marshall was bred.
He could tell you everybody in every beat in the county, and could tell you how many votes he got in that box, and he was the kingmaker.
Those old guys in that generation knew how to count votes.
He knew how to count it, and he knew how to produce.
He sure did. That was the first place I came to.
Yeah.
My old mentors in Pike County, my old probate judge and representative said, you got to go get with, they got me with Marshall Williams when I first ran. But going back, so your family came there in 1819 and farmed, and then you went off to Georgia, played football a year or two, and then came back home, and you were going to farm, and then you went back to Auburn and graduated Auburn?
Actually, I dropped out after my first year. I'd gotten hurt, and I used that as an excuse, really, and my daddy put me to farming. So at the end of that first year, I was ready to go back to college. And he said, no. I said, we can't afford it. He said, you gave up the scholarship. He said, besides that, we got to take care of Billy. He said, Billy's college material.
How much younger is Billy than you?
Billy's about 4.5 years, and he said, Billy's college material, and you're not.
He said that about you?
He was dead serious.
But Billy was set on being a pharmacist, going to Auburn already?
Really was going to be a doctor. And he decided that he wanted to be a pharmacist. He would have been a great doctor, but in a small town like Clayton, your pharmacist just about is your doctor.
It is. It sure is. People don't realize that.
Yeah.
You're right, Jere.
Yeah.
But so when did you go back? You went back to Auburn and finally.
Yeah, I went back to Auburn. I stayed one more year out of school, 2 years in a row, and went to Auburn and sort of turned my academic career around, and that's where I met my wife, Sarah.
You met Sarah at Auburn
Yeah.
then?
I'm older than she is, but she'd already graduated from Emory University with honors and was coming to Auburn to get an education degree. And
She's from someplace in Jefferson County.
She's from Adamsville.
That's right,
in
yeah.
Jefferson, and taught nursing at Troy.
I didn't know that.
Later.
I told Keith Watkins I was going to see you today.
Yeah.
Terry did the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, well, you probably, I knew you and Keith are good friends.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
He thinks the world, he done all that stuff about Frank Johnson, too.
Yeah,
You know, he spent a lot of time. But I didn't mean to get off on that. But back to, you graduated Auburn. Did you major in, and what did you major in Auburn?
Well, in business, and got interested in law. And I never had any real intent of going to law school when I really got out of high school. In fact, my goal was to be a coach. And I had done, really at Auburn, went through a business law course and sort of got interested in that. And then decided I wanted to try law. At that time, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in law, but once I got there, I really decided I wanted to be a trial lawyer.
So you decided at Auburn you wanted to be a trial lawyer when you got to law school?
Yeah, went to law school, and it turned out that I was there were two of us in law school that went to Auburn. So we called
Is that all?
Yeah. So we were the scapegoats. We were embarrassed.
How many were in your class?
Oh, they were not real big in those
About
days.
50 maybe?
It started off, we probably had 56, if I remember, and 12 graduated out of the 56.
Is that all?
Yeah.
That made
Yeah.
only 12 finished out of 56?
It was much harder to get out of school then than now.
Okay.
Now it's more volume. Back then, it was hard to get in and hard to stay in.
Both things.
Yeah.
But you decided Auburn, and you not only decided you were going to be a lawyer, you decided you were going to be on the plaintiff side.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you what really got, I kind of, from a distance I wanted to be, but the reason I ended up being a trial lawyer, Frank Johnson, the judge, had a great deal to do with that.
Is that right?
When I got defeated in the governor's
In
race,
78.
I was broke, couldn't get a job with any of the law firms that I'd helped as lieutenant governor, didn't get a single response to a resume. And I went to see Judge Johnson. He and I had become friends. And I came there kind of hat in hand. Bob James, the governor, had offered me a state job at a salary that was not a bad salary, but I had a wife and children, and I really didn't want to go to work for the state.
Yeah.
So I go to see Judge Johnson, and I tell him this sad story. And so he just looked me straight in the eye, and he said, Jere, said, you got a law degree? I said, yes, sir. He said, look at Clayton. Not Clayton, but Montgomery. He said, that's your hometown now. He said, there's not a law firm in that town that represents victims of corporate wrongdoing. Said, you ought to think about what you need to do. He said, I'm going to give you some good advice. And I said, what is it, Judge? He said, get your rear end out of politics and practice law, except you didn't use the word rear end.
So he was. How did y'all got to be friends?
Well, it's kind of an interesting connection that we had. When we moved to Clayton, I can say Clayton, from Clayton to Montgomery, Sarah needed some help. We had children at that time, 3 very small children. So this young African-American young lady, about 18, 19 years old, came to work for Sarah. You know where her mama worked? Ms. Ruth Johnson, Judge Johnson's
Is that
wife.
right?
So we got to know each other through that connection more than a legal connection.
Alabama's a big front porch.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Sarah, Catherine Tucker Wyndham used to say.
Yeah.
We're a big front porch. We all can each other.
No doubt about it.
The longer you live, you realize that too. So you got to know Ruth. That goes back to the story Keith Watkins likes to tell about how unbelievably close George Wallace and Frank Johnson were in law school. And George would go over there and eat supper with Ruth and Frank Johnson while he was in law school.
But it came to a halt.
Yeah, it sure did. And Frank Johnson wouldn't make up with him. You know the story of that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I know a lot of the inside there. In fact, I remember when I was in high school working at the cotton warehouse, we were buying pecans. And you mentioned Marshall Williams. His son, Marshall Jr., and I were classmates, and so we were working for his daddy in there with the pecan business.
Y'all were at Clayton High School.
In Clayton. Mm-hmm. And so this on Saturday, and this car came screeching up there, and came to a halt, and it was George Wallace. He was circuit judge then. And he said, "Where's the judge? Talking about Marshall, where's the judge?" And we tell him he's in his office, so he goes in and they close the door, and I hear the conversation. Judge Johnson was going to hold Wallace in contempt of court for not turning over the records, the education records, and Wallace had refused, and so he was facing a deadline. And so he came in there to get advice from Judge Williams, Marshall Williams, and Marshall was very very candid and strong. He said, "You get your little rear up there and give him those records, or you going to jail." So Wallace did that.
And Marshall was not a lawyer.
No,
but he knew that.
He was a probate judge, but he knew the political end too, and he also knew that legally he was going to be in contempt. And he thought Judge Johnson would put him in jail.
What did
so
Wallace
it
say?
scared Wallace to death.
Did it?
And he got in that car and turned those records over immediately.
Oh, I'll be doggone. I remember we sat in your office one day and you told me that story about how Wallace had gotten like he came and begged. That's how respected Marshall Williams was.
Oh yeah, and he just said that, and he also was very tough and strong.
Jere, go back to your thing when you finished law school at Alabama. That's amazing to me. Out of 56 started, only 12 finished. Only 2 of y'all were Auburn undergraduates. But you already were thinking in terms of being a plaintiff lawyer. But you went straight into went to Gadsden and worked for Jim Allen.
No, let's back up a little bit on that. I actually went to a defense law firm in Tuscaloosa because I didn't get any job offers around the rest of the state except one from Gadsden, and I didn't want to do that.
One in room in Clayton, was there?
No, zero. So I ended up going to work for a lawyer named Olin Zeno, who was a defense lawyer, who was a friend of Tom Parker, the Supreme Court Justice. His daddy worked for then Farm Bureau.
I remember.
And so he funneled all the business to Zeno, and I got a lot of trial experience, but it was always on the defense side. So I went back. Then I went back to Clayton from there.
Okay, for a little while.
And practiced with, first of all, with another lawyer, and then on my own. And then the Jim Allen thing came into play in 1968, and he asked me to be his campaign manager.
Had you shown any interest or propensity for being a campaign person?
Not a campaign. Well, I'd worked for Lurleen Wallace when she ran for governor.
Okay.
And I thought Wallace and Allen were friends.
They weren't.
Found out later they were not.
Because that 65 secession.
Exactly, the succession bill. And he blamed Allen for that.
Right.
So, but anyway, they asked me to be the campaign manager, so I did that. And I set up the organization all over the state in every county, had coordinators and other people working for Senator Allen. And back then, that was important, more so than later. TV was not as important. A little bit of radio, a little bit of advertising in newspapers, but most of it was just handshaking and face-to-face politicking. And so I went through that campaign. Allen won. I found out during that campaign that George Wallace was supporting Armstead Selden for the Senate.
Yeah.
And he sent word to me he wanted to meet with me in Montgomery to discuss the campaign. Well,
During the campaign?
Yeah. I'm naive. I thought he was calling me. He went through Jean Robinson, his secretary.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't tell me why. Just said he wants to talk about the campaign. I assumed he wanted to help Allen because he'd been lieutenant governor under Wallace. Didn't know of the split at that time. So Sarah and I drive up to Montgomery, and I go out to the mansion, and Wallace proceeds to tell me to get out of the campaign.
Just told you to get out of it.
He said, "You're working for my worst enemy." And
Did Jim Allen know that, you think? He had to know it,
He did. He knew it. Yeah, he knew it. I didn't know it. Yeah, but he insisted, and I just told him I couldn't get out because I'd signed up with him. I'd set up his campaign. I was working with his advertising folks, and I just couldn't do it. And he was offended that I wouldn't do it. And so that kind of caused us problems later on.
Yeah.
I didn't. Of course, Allen won and went on to be a great senator.
It's a shame he died so early.
Yeah,
too.
real early.
Now, was Tom Coker in that campaign with you?
Yeah.
You and Coker were running that
Yeah,
campaign.
and Finus Gaston.
And Coker went to Washington with
Went
him.
to Washington and did a good job for him, and he's doing a good job now on his own as a lobbyist here.
Well, in '68, you kept practice law in Gadsden with his firm or something?
No.
But you went up in Gadsden somewhere. Didn't you?
Yeah, I operated out of Gaston, but it really went all over the state. And I met, that's how I set up my campaign to run in '70.
So you had eye on one in '70 from after that campaign.
Yeah, after the campaign.
You had an organization.
Yeah.
Jere, you must have been pretty active in that '66 Lurleen race for them to come after you for the '68.
I had made a lot of speeches for her, and I really had great respect for her. She was a good person, very strong, compassionate, and everybody thought she was just going to be a figurehead, and she wasn't.
Jere, you also saw something that very few people saw, how Wallace basically abandoned his family, and she was mother and father.
She took care of the family and took care of, and with the help of Jere, the brother.
Yeah, I heard that guy that was a politician there, that named the first road, they named after heading to Clayton, kept his family up. Marshall probably did too anyway, but you saw that firsthand. He just basically was going to run for governor, and his family could fend for themselves.
He was running constantly, and she took care of the family situation, the finances, and everything. Really.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
And she was just a good person.
He was a political animal.
He was as political as a person can possibly be.
I call him the ultimate political animal.
He was, and
you could sit with him; he wouldn't know what he was eating.
He actually worked at it day and night.
That's all he cared about.
And when he lost that first race, that was a blow to his ego, and he never got over that, in my opinion, because if you remember, he ran kind of as a liberal, and Patterson put that on him, and the Klan supported John Patterson.
Only time he ever lost. Jere, going back to your roots and everything, you and I talk similar, but you have a distinct Barber County roots accent, and Wallace had that same thing, but yours is more genteel than Wallace's. Wallace was distinctive. And those of us who grew up in the state, we realize that's a unique Barber County. I bet you've been all over the country, being one of the top lawyers in the country, and been in a lot of courtrooms. I bet you've had juries look at you almost mesmerized because of your dialect or diction, haven't you?
I could take somebody from Barber County, put them in New York City, and let them be exposed to everybody up there. And I could go in there and pick out that Barber County man or woman by the voice.
I can almost do the same.
Yeah.
And I always wondered why our part of the state had that kind of accent or something. I mean,
I never have quite understood it myself, but I recognized it.
Yours is more softer and genteel. I can see how you've been so successful with juries.
Well, what we've done in the judicial system, our law firm, I started the firm, just me, broke, no clients, no nothing, 2 employees that came from the Lieutenant Governor's office, 2 females. And we started the firm. I followed Judge Johnson's advice. We started with small cases and built it up over the years. And we now probably have 125 lawyers, about 250 support staff, offices in Montgomery, Mobile, Atlanta. We have a small office in Birmingham and operate pretty much all over the country. In fact, as we talk today, we're trying a case in California in the Johnson & Johnson talc ovarian cancer case. And we have actually made, as Lieutenant Governor, I can't think of anything much I did that amounted to a hill of beans, to be honest with you. At that time, the Lieutenant Governor's office was pretty much just a name and a little bit of control of the Senate. But we have actually brought about changes in corporate America through the judicial system. I could make a list of 100 changes that we made a company, a big corporation, change its safety practices to protect their customers and the people that use their products.
You are the most renowned, one of the most renowned lawyers in Alabama history because of building that law firm. The thing that's so interesting is that you would think someone who had built the most gigantic, illustrious plaintiff firm in the South, probably, definitely in Alabama, would have dreamed of doing that. But so many people who've been remarkably successful like you, they really weren't sure that's where they were going. Like you didn't know at 25 years old. Can you envision if someone had told you at 25 that you'd wake up in 2025 and have the kind of law firm you've built?
Not really. In fact, I remember when we hired our 5th lawyer in Montgomery, Sarah, my wife, asked me, said, "Are you going to get much bigger than this?" And I said, "I don't think so." And I really didn't at that point, just to be quite candid. And it evolved over the years, and the smartest thing we ever did was not my idea. It was actually Tom Miffin's idea, who's our manager of the firm. He said, "Let's put this firm in sections where that section can develop expertise in a certain area of law." So we actually formed 4 litigation sections, one being personal injury and product liability, and that all they did was cases that would be either product liability or automobile wrecks, anything to do with either injury or death from a product or an incident.
Jere, now Method, he's from Barbican too?
Follow.
That's what I thought.
Bob Miffin was his dad, who was a local politician there.
Yeah.
And Tom came to work for the firm right out of law school. And he later became manager and actually has done a tremendous job of managing the firm, and is known for his organizational skills, and the employees, they know, and the lawyers and the support staff know, that we're going to do it the right way, we're going to do it for the right reason, and if you can't operate within that principle, then you don't need to be there.
Jere, one thing I'll say before you get a chance to get out, you and Sarah have the most stellar reputation, and you never wore this on, bragged about or anything, but all of us have followed politics and followed law in the state. Y'all have been 2 of the most devout people and 2 of the most dedicated couples. When people talk about you, and they talk about Sarah too, y'all have been an exemplary couple, Christian-wise and for a family, and you probably have exuded that in your law firm.
Well, Sarah has had, when we first met, I had spotted her as being unusually different. And I can truthfully say we got married in 1958, which is so far back that most folks can't even remember that date. And I can say without reservation, I have never heard her say anything bad about anybody, regardless of how bad they might have been. And if I started doing it, she'd tell me to kind of back off. I didn't always do it, but I should have listened to her. But she's had just unusually, her impact on our marriage and on me personally has been beyond, I couldn't even describe it.
People know of that. Y'all has had two children, Jere and
Three.
Sarah.
Three.
Julie. Oh, I know Julie and Jere, but who's the third?
It's Linda Lee.
Is she a baby now? The baby of the family?
She's the third one, and
Is she a lawyer?
no, she graduated from Auburn, and she could run anybody's business, and she right now is just really not working anywhere. But Julie was a lawyer in our firm for a good while.
I know she and my daughter were good friends.
And Julie was a really good lawyer and a good trial lawyer, but she decided she wanted to go full time in the horse business, and so she's now in the cutting horse business and has 26 horses, and competes herself and also breeds horses.
Is she in Montgomery area?
Yeah.
Jerry, one thing we got to wrap it up. I hate to do that, but we one thing you said about your law firm. Now, how many lawyers do you have? Over 100 prominent plaintiff lawyers in your firm. One day we were talking in your office, and you said one of the best business moves you made was opening that Atlanta office.
Yeah.
Is that you still say that?
Yeah, I still say it. In fact, we should have done it a long time before. In fact, we hesitated, but it's been extremely successful. We've attracted some very good lawyers into that firm, into that part of the firm, and the Mobile firm is the same way.
Same way.
And the Montgomery firm has been. I mean, it's the hub, and now we've been trying cases now all over the country, and have gotten involved with other firms, and I'd say probably 25%, maybe a third of our business comes from other lawyers that send them to us that maybe they don't do.
Right.
That may not do product liability cases.
Well, they're not geared for it. They can't.
Yeah, Morgan does a lot of advertising, and they're good lawyers. And for a good while, they were sending all the product liability cases to us.
Is that right?
And they now have tried to bring some lawyers in that do that, but we don't advertise, and and I understand that those that do, that's fine. We just feel like that our time's best spent in the courtroom and representing the clients.
Well, you're an Alabama treasure, an Alabama legend. Maybe we can do this again some other day if you have time.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. In fact, this is the first one I've done in a while, and I told you coming in, just to be candid, I wouldn't have done it except for you.
Thank you for saying that. We have a good relationship, and I've always admired you, and Sarah too, as you mentioned.
But what you do, Steve, is important because you remind people of things in the past as well as the current situations. And I'm going to give you an example of why it's important. I spoke down at Troy University several years ago now, and they had the cream of the crop of intellectually superior students all together. And Jack Hawkins asked me to come down and speak, and I did. After the speech was over, we opened for questions. And I asked them, I said, how many of you know who Frank M. Johnson was? 0. I asked them, how many of you know who Fred Gray was? 3. How many of you know who Rosa Parks was? 0. I realized then that we've done a very poor job of educating the public on important events from the past that have shaped Alabama. And that's why right now Fred has an institute called the Fred Gray Institute for Civil and Human Rights. I'm on the board of directors. And he's 90, he'll be 95 in 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks. And he's still as active as he can be, sharp as a tack, a little bit limited mobility-wise because of age. But he just got through with a symposium in Cleveland where they had a huge crowd, and the movement has started there. And you're going to see it popping up all over the country where he's educating from the past, also motivating for the future. And instilling in people the reason you need to protect the rights of people, to protect them in every respect, and to also protect the judicial system, which is the key to making sure you have the other.
Jerry, I appreciate you doing this.
Well, I've enjoyed it.
I know our guests, our viewers have enjoyed it. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Hope you tune again next week for Alabama Politics.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.